You're watching Rurouni K95's movie review on Allegro non Troppo. Hi Ruronis, this is your pal Rurouni K95 here. Today we're going to be reviewing a movie which is directed by Bruno Bozzetto. For today's movie review is Allegro non Troppo. Allegro non Troppo is a 1976 Italian animated film directed by Bruno Bozzetto featuring the 6 pieces of classical music. The film is a parody of, not exactly a parody, it's basically, the film Allegro non Troppo is basically Italy's response, most significantly, to Walt Disney's 1940 feature film Fantasia. Two of its segments being derived from the earlier film, the classical pieces are set to color animation ranging from comedy to deep tragedy. This was directed by Bruno Bozzetto, who's known for VIP, My Brother Superman, Weston Soda, Mr. Rossi's Summer Vacation one, and his other works, including the live-action film Under the Chinese Restaurant. The movie features Maurizio Micheli Maurizio Nichetti, Nèstor Garay, and Marialuisa Giovannini. It was released in March 12, 1976, but then it was released in America, distributed by Specialty Films, in 1977 in the United States of America during the 70s. At the beginning, in between the animation at the end, there are black and white live-action sequences displaying the fictional animator, orchestra, conductor, and filmmaker, with many humorous scenes about the fictional production of the film. Some of these sections mixed animation and live-action. The film was released in 2 versions. The first includes live-action sequences in between the classical pieces, and the second version of the film omits these, replacing them with animated plasticine letters spelling out the title of the next piece of music. Then again, if this would have gotten a Criterion release, then it would have 2 versions, having a probably release it on DVD and Blu-ray for a Criterion collection release for the film. I really shouldn't be all that. Speaking of Fantasia, I haven't even reviewed Disney's 1940 film Fantasia yet, but maybe for another time. So for the program, see segments in Allegro non Troppo, especially in Claude Debussy's Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, an elderly satyr repeatedly attempts to cosmetically recapture his youth and virility, but all in vain. With each failure, the satyr gets smaller and smaller until he roams across a vast countryside, which turns out to be a woman's body. Definitely inappropriate. But yeah. And in Antonian Dovrak's Slavonic Dance No. 7 OP.46 begins in a large community of cliffside cave dwellers. A solitary caveman waiting for him to be himself goes out into the plain and builds himself a new home. And from this point on, the rest of the community copies everything that he does, annoyed that everyone is able to keep up with his advances so quickly. So he attempts to break away from them, leading to his planning a bizarre act of mass vengeance with unintended and humorous consequences. Oh, and also in Bolero Sequence, especially Maurice Ravel's Bolero Sequence in Allegro non Troppo, a primordial soda at the bottom of the bottle left behind by space travelers attains life and progresses through peaceful representation of the stages of evolution in history until skyscrapers erupt from the ground and destroy that all comes before. This is basically the Coca-Cola bottle scene in Allegro non Troppo, especially the Bolero sequence. This segment parallels the Rite of Spring segment from Walt Disney's 1940 film Fantasia. Complete with a solar eclipse, its opening moment was used as the image for the film poster, especially for Bruno Bozzetto's Allegro non Troppo. And also in Sibelius's Valse Triste, A solitary cat wanders in the ruins of a large house. The cat remembers the life that used to fill the house when it was occupied. Eventually, all of these images fade away, as does the cat just before. The ruins are demolished. Yeah, the Valse Triste sequence in Allegro non Troppo is basically very emotional and very sad, because this includes a cat in the sequence in Allegro non Troppo sequence Valse Triste. Antonio Vivaldi's Concerto in C major RV 559, a female bee sequence. A bee prepares to dine on a flower and elaborates his style, completes with utensils and a portable TV, but it is continually interrupted by the two lovers having a romantic interlude on the nearby grass. In the end, after having her meal continually interrupted and each time being forced to gather up her things and scramble to safety, she stings the male on his rump. And also in the Firebird sequence in the Allegro non Troppo, especially Igor Stravinsky's The Firebird Suite in Allegro non Troppo, which is long before Fantasia 2000, which I'll cover for another time, begins with a lump of clay molded by a monotheistic symbol of the omniscient pyramid, making unsuccessful creatures with overly awkward limbs, and then finally the Adam and Eve as portrayed in Genesis in the Old Testament, because of the Bible. Adam and Eve then transform into cell animation, and as in Genesis, which is probably from the Old Testament because it's in the Holy Bible, particularly in Allegro non Troppo. The serpent comes up to them offering the fruits of knowledge in the form of the apple, and after they refused it, the serpent then swallows the apple itself. Falling asleep, he is immediately plunged into a nightmare in a hellish environment where he is tormented by fiery demons. This sequence is almost as terrifying as Chernobog in Night on Bald Mountain sequence in Fantasia, and then is plagued by all things that are supposed to corrupt mankind: sex, alcohol, money, material objects, drugs, and violence. He also grows arms and legs, is magicked into a suit and fedora. When the music ends, after he wakes up, he's still wearing the suit and hat, and after telling Adam and Eve, however, his dream in a fast motion and sensible manner, he sheds the suit, losing his arms and legs, but keeping the hat, and spits up the still whole apple. In the live action scene, the elderly women orchestra were screaming out, "It's a snake!" And then the presenter saying, "We got an antidote for a snake bite in that one." In the epilogue sequence, the film host asks animated Igor-type monster identified as Franceschini to retrieve a finale for the movie from the basement storeroom. Franceschini rejects several of these, but delightfully approves one of them. Depicts a ridiculously escalating series of accidents featuring an assortment of short unidentified musical orchestra clips instead of a single piece. Through Johannes Brahms' Hungarian Dance No. 5 can be heard at the beginning, and both Johann Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor and Dvorak's Slavonic Dance No. 7 from before, and Franz Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 can be briefly heard towards the end, ending with the Earth exploding in a nuclear war. The action returns to be the host and conductor discussing their next project. After a bit of brainstorming, the host reveals his latest original and brilliant idea was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, with the title Sleeping Beauty. Then it turns out to be another finale, but watched by Franceschini. After it ends, the serpent from the Firebird Suite sequence pops out and bites him on the nose, and the words Happy End drop on them, and the serpent peering out of the D. So the live action scenes. The uncut film contains comic live action sequences in black and white, blended with an occasional color animations that parody Deems Taylor introductions from Fantasia. The presenter, Maurizio Micheli he plays starts off with the exaggerated version of Deems Taylor's opening introduction of Fantasia, an original film. You will see the music and hear the image, the drawings, and a Fantasia, only interrupted by a phone call from California informing him that the movie has already been done. He angrily objects, dismissing the caller as an ill-mannered liar, explaining that to the audience that the caller claims that someone named Pisney or Grisney, some American, has made Fantasia before, but has done this years before. Then telling the caller to at least watch the movie, and then hangs up. Next, presenter introduced the orchestra master, played by Nèstor Garay, and the orchestra made up of little old ladies, as the orchestra master roughly rounds them up from the cattle pen into a large trailer for transport to the theater. As the trailer heads out to the theater and presenter exults, Pisney has already done this? Lastly, before the first animated music sequence prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, the presenter introduces the animator, played by Maurizio Nichetti, as the orchestra master retrieves him from a dungeon-like cell in which the animator, a free artist, has been chained to a wall. As the presenter puts it, a binding contract based on trust and mutual respect. A pretty young cleaning woman, played by Mirella Falco Giovannini, also appears in each segment, although she's barely acknowledged by any of the characters except the animator, however, who seems to take an increasing fancy to her as the movie progresses. Each sequence portrays action and the tossing of the Coca-Cola bottle, that leads directly into the next animation portion of the film that includes references to the previous segment, such as the chamber pot appearing on the orchestra master's head, or the female bee and the serpent from their respective segments appearing briefly in the subsequent live-action sequences. After the Bolero segment, a gorilla inspired by the animated character in Bolero also appears a few times, at first chasing them down with dancing with the animator, and then later beating up the orchestra master who has attacked the animator. After the Firebird sequence, the animator transforms the cleaning woman into a cartoon fairy tale princess and himself into a prince, apparently resembling the titular character and her prince from Walt Disney's 1937 film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Both float away, leaving the presenter and the orchestra master without a finale, leading it into the epilogue sequence. And that's my review on Allegro non troppo. So the idea of the filming the live-action sequences on Allegro non troppo, it was filmed at a Donizetti theater in Bergamo, Italy. When Bruno Bozzetto has heard Ravel's Bolero on the radio when he's heading to Bergamo, since he saw the film Fantasia 12 times because he loved the music and the visuals. And that's how he got the idea of creating Allegro non troppo, because he was saying he loved the visuals in Fantasia, so he had to make the film Allegro non troppo anyway, because he had to do his own animation to classical music with other animators, including Guido Manueli, who is another Italian animator who worked on the Bruno Bozzetto shorts with Bruno Bozzetto as a collaboration, as well as Giuseppe Lagana, who's also one of the animators that worked on every animation segments in Allegro non troppo. That's why. So that's going to be it for my movie review on Allegro non troppo for today. So thank you for watching, but before we go, here's my thoughts about Allegro non troppo. So this movie is particularly is the Italian response to Walt Disney's 1947 film Fantasia, not 1940 animated feature film Fantasia, because Fantasia is getting re-releases in the public eye when Bruno Bozzetto created Allegro non troppo. Even though Bruno Bozzetto have directed it with legendary Hayao Miyazaki, but as a movie reviewer, I have Allegro non troppo on DVD, because Allegro non troppo was released on VHS and LaserDisc with the English subtitles, but I have it on DVD, but it's out of print and it's expensive online these days. So I hope subscribe for content. My anime plan, link in the description down below. Share this video on Twitter, Facebook. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, Ronikin. I feel free to join my channel because I'm running out of time if you're new to my channel as well. And I got one more thing for surprises. So stay tuned for more movie reviews that I'll be covering for the most part. Even though I did a movie review on Allegro non troppo. I will see you then. I will see you there for my anime review on Ranma half, because I will see you there.